Good morning. Welcome to Mornings at the Allotment. My name is Rebecca, and today I'm going to be showing you the allotment in April. I was just looking up there. I'm sitting right below where the blue tits have decided they like our nesting box. So I'm going to wrap it up here quickly and show you around the garden. I filmed my last plot tour exactly a month ago, and I thought that not much had changed, but then I went back to watch the March video and realized that even though it has been very cold and many things haven't grown at all, others have done really well. And there are just some things that we managed to get done despite the weather, things like weeding, which we all love very much. And that was really necessary. So the garden will have changed quite a bit since the last tour. My partner has been planting a few more herbs into his ongoing project and added what's going to be a little pond. We haven't put any plants in there yet because it's just been too cold. And I just saw some bindweed that I'm going to have to get out later. The radishes have come up very well. Unfortunately, I haven't seen a single carrot in between. We made our own seed tape with radishes and carrots, and the radishes have mostly come up, but no carrots so far. Let me see if I can find. Yep, here's a white radish and some pink or red. This was a rainbow variety they had at the supermarket, and since you could never have enough radishes, I went for that. So our tomato structure is as it was before. I've started putting up the strings that we're going to use to trellis the tomatoes. We have 4 rows that are too closely spaced, yes, but we're going to do it anyway. And 6 plants per row, so we'll have 24 plants under here. Of course, now that it's almost time to take them out and plant the tomatoes, the broad beans have finally started to flower. But since I only put them in the first place because they're nitrogen fixers, it's really not a big issue. So do you remember my potatoes in buckets? Well, they've grown well. I added more compost on top for those that had already broken through, and they all survived the frost very well. And they aren't only growing, they've also multiplied. So the only reason we're growing this many potatoes is because we're trying several new varieties, and then we were gifted some, and then I'm participating in Erica's potato challenge from Erica's Little Welsh Garden, where we grow supermarket potatoes. So yeah, lots of buckets with potatoes. My daughter's bed is also beginning to develop. She's put in a bit of structure, and we've weeded quite a bit. Also taken out many strawberries that we ended up composting. And the herbs are all growing very well. Even the laurel that we thought had died in the deep freeze that we had is showing signs of growth. So we're very happy about that. I'm very happy about the first blossoms on the borage. It was here when we got the allotment and it self-seeds all over, but this year it's been 2 weeks or even 3 weeks later than it was last year. So I'm very happy that the bees and other insects finally have some blossoms to fly to. I'm also really liking the look of this cherry tree, which we thought was dead. Long story, won't go into it now, but we decided to leave it in, and it looks like it's doing okay. This is the rhubarb that I should have moved in the fall and forgot, and again it just doesn't have much room for its roots. There were trees growing all around it, and yeah, well, it's not going to get much bigger than this, I think, and we won't get a harvest from it. But I decided not to move it now. I'll move it in the fall, and I put it in my calendar so I won't forget this year. One thing that's looking much better, although it's kind of hard to see with the logs behind it, is our black elder, and we only got it last year. It was very, very tiny, and this year it's really looking a lot better. Let me show you. Look. This is last year's Swiss chard. The last leaves last year were basically very fleshy and laying flat over the ground. And then this spring I took those off, and now it's started producing more tender leaves again. When going back and looking at my March footage, this bed really struck me as having changed the most, I think. The spinach really needs to be harvested, so we're probably going to have fish and potatoes and spinach today or tomorrow. And yeah, and next to it, these are the broad beans that are actually staying in the ground that we actually want to harvest. In the back, next to the fence, we have some black currant, some red gooseberry, some green gooseberry, and a beautiful red currant bush. They're all very young. We planted them last year. They were supermarket plants, and underplanted the whole with some spare strawberries we had. We have way too many spare strawberries. And look at this red currant. This looks like it's going to be a beautiful harvest, if the birds don't get to it faster than us. But I refuse to put netting over it, because that's just dangerous if animals get stuck in it. So this here is our youngest and newest apple tree, and it actually, we planted it last year, and it actually has a couple of blossoms, so maybe we'll get one apple off of that. This bed is still mainly empty. I'm going to be putting root vegetables in here, but some of the beetroot that we've already put in is finally starting to get some new growth, so that's looking good. This apple tree, I think it was here when we got the plot. Yes, it was, and it was very small then, and we got, I think, it bore 4 apples last year that the birds got, which was fine, and it has lots of blossoms this year, so maybe it'll do better this year. It's also grown very well. At the beginning of the year, I posted on Instagram, I think, that I had found some very cheap berry plants at the supermarket, and they're all edible for humans too, so they were declared as edible for birds, which is probably why they were so cheap, and so I got those to put here. The dog rose and a Juneberry that's also doing pretty well, and we have a rose that was here when we got the allotment. Then we have sea buckthorn that has just started showing signs of life at all, and a blackthorn. Can you see it? Yeah, I still have some weeding to do here, and of course we have all the strawberries as well. These beds are coming along nicely. If you've seen my video about my new cold frame, everything in there is doing pretty well. It's been cold, and I don't have it covered completely, but things are growing faster than they would outside the cold frame. And back here, my daughter has been busy planting some brassicas and kohlrabi interplanted with lettuce. And here we've started some mange tout. We just started them, and the first few are coming up here. Looking good. Then I've put up the canes for the tomatoes that are going without cover, and we have some more onions growing here, and this is going to be the bed for the outdoor peppers.
mostly I'm also going to be growing some peppers, especially the chili peppers in the greenhouse though. And these have not been doing much growing at all. Those were already in the March video. I want to show you this. This is the Pak Choi have been eaten by a flea beetle, and they're slowly beginning to put on some new growth that without flea beetle bites. This is the biggest one I have here. I'll put my hand for comparison, and I'll show you one in the greenhouse later on. Now there's definitely some ridiculous growth going on in this bed with all the self-seeded lettuce. So I've started just chopping off individual heads. Small heads, but just chopping them off because they're just spaced far too closely, so I just take those home. We eat them, let the others get bigger, eat those. And eventually I want to empty this out and put some, not sure what yet, some later crops in here, maybe beans or something. And I'm finally getting flowers in here. Can't wait for those. A for the bees and B for the seed. As with the carrots in the other bed, we made our own seed tape for the parsnips and root parsley. But the only thing that's coming up so far, of course, is the radishes. They're always first. But they mark the rows for me, so I know that anything that comes up between the radishes is root veg, and anything that comes up between the rows is most likely just a weed. And finally the greenhouse. As you can see, the covering has come off, even though we did still have cold nights, but it was just way too hot during the day, and I had to come up here really early to open up the window, the door. The windows open automatically. And here you can see the Pak Choi, the only one. They were sown at the same time, and this one, to do some weeding here, and this one is just a whole different thing compared to the ones outside. And also no flea beetle here. Oh, a bit. And some more Swiss chard back here, and some kohlrabi that are beginning to look good. A blueberry plant. Oh, and these doing so well. More strawberries. These were planted later in the second one here, but look at these. Getting our first strawberries. This salad is still doing okay. This one is bolted. We just had some of that yesterday and it was bitter, so that's coming out. And unfortunately, the cauliflowers are not going to be heading. So we started eating the leaves. And actually we did a really good cabbage pie, or in this case it was a brassica leaf pie that I got from a video from Vivi's Kitchen Garden, what Vivi did next. That was really very good, and that we'll be doing again with these. Also, you can do cabbage rolls very well with them, even better than with regular cabbage, because they're so long, so they're perfect actually. Oh, and then we have a couple of my seedlings here. Most of them are still at home. I have a little greenhouse out on the balcony as well. Some of these really need to go in the ground. That's what I'll be doing this afternoon and next week. Flowers as well. Back here and up here. So yeah, these need to be watered, and they need to be put out in the ground. All right. I hope you enjoyed the April allotment tour. I also hope you can hear me with all those bells going on in the background. I'll be staying at the allotment today. It's such a beautiful day. It's Sunday morning at 10 just now. and I don't know when I'll get around to editing this. I wanted to do it today, but it's such a lovely day, and April has been so cold that I've decided to enjoy this. So maybe you'll have to wait until Monday to see this video. I hope you'll stick around. Maybe check out some of my other videos, my March tour. Subscribe to the channel if you've liked it to see what's going on here. I'll be doing a lot of planting in the next couple of weeks, and then the tomatoes finally, eventually. And then, of course, between today and the May tour, I'm sure there'll be a very big difference. So do come again, and see you then. Bye.